You're listening to the True North Success Podcast. Real stories of personal, professional, and financial wins from Alberta's best. With your hosts, Gary Ma and Amy Kim.
Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Today my special guest is Brian Kearl. He is a tax partner at Linmac LLP in Calgary, bringing nearly 20 years of expertise to his role. He practices in all areas of tax law, specializing in mergers and acquisitions, private equity, and corporate reorganizations. Brian is also a recognized expert in Indigenous business development, providing strategic advice to First Nations and Métis groups regarding unique taxation and commercial planning. A graduate of the University of Victoria and the University of Lethbridge, he was previously a partner at Dentons Canada before joining Linmac in April 2026. It is my pleasure to have Brian Kearl on the show today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So Brian, I gave a quick overview of your success, but can you fill in the details of what you do, who you serve, and how long you've been doing this for?
Yeah, it sounds good. I've been a tax lawyer for, I guess over 20 years now. And just as you said, recently joined Linmac. There's 3 or 4 lawyers at Linmac that I worked with in the past. And so it's been great to get back with them, working with friends and colleagues. Before that, I was partner at a couple of big national, international firms as a partner practicing tax. And so now, I think for the last decade or so, my focus had been more on public company work, kind of private equity, cross-border work, that type of thing. And at Linmac, we do more tax planning and that type of thing for entrepreneurs, private companies, high net worth individuals, that type of thing. Still do some smaller public company work and some cross-border private equity work, but the focus is now more on the entrepreneurs, I'd say.
Right. So with your, from the start, what kind of led you to become a lawyer?
Yeah. So I actually have 2 older brothers that are lawyers.
Okay.
But originally I I grew up in Calgary. I went down to Lethbridge because I wanted to be a teacher. My mom's a teacher.
Okay.
And so I wanted to do that and maybe coach basketball or something. And my dad was a career CRA guy and had spent his whole career as an auditor with CRA. And so originally I was down in Lethbridge. I was going to be a teacher. They have a great program down there. I still do. Mm-hmm. And about a year or 2 into it, I decided that maybe that's not what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And in addition to having 2 older brothers that are lawyers, I have 2 older brothers that are accountants. And so I actually switched over to accounting at U of L and graduated with a master's or a major in accounting. And then I had a choice to make whether to kind of go to law school or to come back to Calgary and article and in accounting. And so I actually talked to all my brothers and said, tell me a bit about what you do and what daily life is like. And then I think law sort of, I thought would be a bit more interesting to me. And so instead of coming back to Calgary to article, I went off to Victoria to go to law school. And I'd taken some tax courses in accounting, and then I took tax courses at law school. So when I graduated law school and started articling, I pretty much knew I wanted to practice tax, and and then have practiced tax ever since.
Yeah. So a lot of family influence. You have your brothers on the accounting side, you have your brothers on the law side, your dad's in CRA. So
yeah, that's right. Very, very large family. We grew up in Northeast Calgary, and I think probably that family influence played a big part because none of my brothers and sisters really got into like the medical field.
Okay.
And I suspect it's because, we had a mom that was a teacher and a dad that was kind of an accountant slash tax person. And so
Right.
more, more the liberal arts made sense to us as opposed to the sciences or something like
Right.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Very, very cool. How did you end up focusing on taxation law? Like that's pretty dry stuff. At
Yeah,
least I think.
no, for sure. It can be, and it's not interesting to most people. I do like, so dollars and cents always sort of spoke to me a little bit more black and white. And
Hmm.
then I liked the creative aspect of tax,
Hmm.
where the government has always said that the expectation is that taxpayers can organize their affairs to minimize their tax. There's a principle called the Duke of Westminster principle that is alive and well in Canadian tax, with some modifications in the last probably 10 or 20 years, we'll say. But that affords a lot of creativity in looking at someone's business situation, financial situation,
Hmm.
estate planning concerns, succession planning, that type of stuff, to sort of see if there's some value that can be added by either managing the tax risk that's there, or being a bit creative with tax planning that might be available. So I like the business part of it.
Okay.
And then tax is a bit, I tell young lawyers, tax is a little bit like it's you get corporate lawyers that are negotiating deals, and
Hmm.
then you have litigators that are researching the law and making arguments. And I think tax is kind of right down the middle there. There's a lot of research, there's a lot of case law review, there's a lot of, well, what does CRA think about this, and what do other tax practitioners think? What do the courts think? And what does the legislation say? So it's a lot of research, and you're going to make arguments similar to what a litigator might do. But at the
Hmm.
end of the day, a lot of times they're corporate or state transactions, and you might be negotiating deals, and then marrying the tax as part of that transaction. And so I like that it gives you kind of the best of both worlds. I do like to be involved in deals and negotiate them and advocate for my client, but at the same time, it's still intellectually challenging, because you're researching the law and attempting to understand where things are at and where things are going on the tax side.
Right, right, right. So there's opportunities for like entrepreneurs, business people to kind of work with you to minimize their taxes where possible. So that's what it sounds like.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what we do a lot of, and that's what everyone should do that. I mean, if you think about someone who, let's say they're an employee somewhere, and they're looking at their income, and
Hmm.
they have two options. They could invest in their RSP and take the tax deduction for investing in their RSP, and depending on the tax bracket they're in, that might make a lot of sense. Or they could invest in their TFSA, and maybe they don't need the deduction right now, and so in that case, it would probably make more sense to invest in their TFSA. For young people, there are these first home savings accounts,
Hmm.
which give you a tax deduction. It might make more sense for those younger people to invest there. And so, that's just a small example for, let's say, regular employees. And now you look at the entrepreneurs, and there's other considerations. And
Hmm.
so they should be, just like they talk to their bank about lending arrangements and different interest rates, and where they're going to get, how they're going to raise capital to expand their business. Tax should always be a consideration. I mean, it's a major expense for everyone, whether you're, an employee or a business owner or whatever, retiree.
Yeah.
Everyone should always be kind of thinking about tax, and what the cost is going to be, and are there different things that they should be doing um, to kind of maximize their own dollars.
Right, right, right. Yeah, I believe the difference could be, hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars, in terms of potential tax that you could save if it's arranged properly.
Yeah, absolutely. And you'll see big corporate transactions, big public transactions that some of them, are done on a straight taxable basis. So, one public company is buying another public company, and the parties have agreed that it's particularly where it's a cross-border transaction, that there's no rollovers available, or they're not interested in organizing the deal such that there could be a rollover available for tax purposes. So everyone just sort of, does the deal and pays their taxes. But then you'll have other transactions where the parties have said that tax is really important here, and we're going to organize it such that the parties minimize the tax on the transaction, which typically means there's some sort of deferral. We'll kick the can down the road, as it were, and the tax will eventually be paid. But we're gonna defer that. And if it's a deal within Canada, then it's pretty easy to do. And if it's a deal outside of Canada, then it becomes a bit trickier.
Right. What do you think kind of sets you apart from the competition? Like, what comes easy to you that others find challenging?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, the Calgary tax bar is very strong. Brilliant tax lawyers at all the different shops. I'm part of a tax study group. Probably for the last, 15 years, and there's 15, 16 friends and colleagues at other law firms that are practicing tax, and I go to these groups every month, or this group meeting every month, and I listen and learn, and I think so. It's tough for me to say like how I might be a little different. I like to think that I'm kind of solution oriented and creative. I like to think that I'm not going to get to no, but we're going to find a way to get to yes. And depending on what the needs are of the client, we're gonna find a solution. As opposed to say, they come to me and say, I have a problem. I say, yeah, you have a problem. The discussion ends. I hope it's like, yeah, you have a problem, but we're going to find a solution for you.
Right. So just being, digging in and getting that solution for the right problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Yeah. What kind of tips or suggestions would you give someone who wants to be more successful?
Yeah, I think just be interested and passionate in what you do. I think if you got a certain, if you have a career and you want to advance in that career, you got to be interested and passionate. You got to always be learning, to challenge yourself. If you kind of, turn the clock on and then turn it off at the end of the day and never really think about, what you're doing, at least in that, for your career, I think it's going to be tough to really be successful. That might not be your passion. You might want to be successful in other things. Maybe, you're an artist, or you're a musician or whatever, and that's actually where you want your success to be. And then that's fine. In which case you need to be passionate about that and challenging yourself and be thinking about it. But for young lawyers, that there's no like substitute for just kind of putting in the work, especially in those early years, in those first 10, 15 years. Every time you're working on a file or a matter, if you're a litigator or a case, you're just getting better because you're doing it. They probably call it a practice for a reason. Like, every time you're working, every time you show up to work, you're practicing, you're getting better. But there's really no substitute for just putting time in. And then, eventually you look back and the progress is slower, and you look back and you're like, oh, I'm pretty good at this.
Right. Yeah.
I can add value. I can help my clients or whatever. So I would say that, time and passion. Like I think that's how you're, I think that's how you become successful in whatever you want to do.
Right. Yeah. I guess putting in the reps, basically, And then, if you can put in your reps in the area where you're passionate about, then that makes you even better.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, right. What's one of the biggest challenges that you've had to overcome in your career, and how were you able to turn that into a positive?
Yeah, I mean, I think technological change is so rapid, and that impacts us in the legal profession and in the tax profession. We were just we were having a tax technical lunch meeting yesterday with partners and associates at our firm, and we were some of us older lawyers were joking about how they taught us to research in law school, 20, 25 years ago versus how the young lawyers are being taught to research now. And then with the advent of legal AI and so I think the challenge for the older lawyers like me, it's you got to keep up with the technology, make sure you understand how to use it, where it's useful, make sure you understand where not to sort of over rely on it. So I think the technological change in the last 25 years has been enormous. And then I would also say one of the challenges is I feel like in tax, the courts have changed quite a bit, and just the legislation has changed quite a bit. There's, maybe it used to be in the past where there was maybe more slower change to the legislation and how the courts interpreted the legislation, and that seems to have accelerated, particularly maybe in the last 10 years. So as a tax practitioner, you're got to keep up on all those changes, which could be on a daily basis. I get an email every day at 5 telling me the cases that were released that day and the government publications that were released that day, plus some articles that came out. And I spend time every day reading up on that to make sure I'm not missing something. Just because we did it one way 5 years ago doesn't mean we can do it the same way today, right?
Right. Like really being able to stay on top of things with things changing so fast.
That's right.
It's I can definitely see that as a challenge. Cool.
That's right.
Cool. Yeah.
And so I'm fortunate at my current firm at LINMAC because we have 4 or 5 trust and tax partners and 4 or 5 trust and tax associates. And so we kind of work as a team to make sure that we are staying up on that stuff. And sometimes I'll express a view on a particular case and we'll get one of the young lawyers to challenge me and say, well, I'm not sure I agree. And then go back and forth. And, that kind of stuff really sort of puts it into your brain when you have those discussions and you remember that. So when that case or that principle or concept is important on a matter in a year from now, you're like, oh, but I remember having that debate on that point. And then you know where to go look and to formulate your thoughts again and to reach whatever conclusion you're going to reach.
Right. So it sounds like it's also important to have, let's say, different views. Not, like if everybody has the same view, well, that doesn't, I guess it doesn't really challenge you in terms of giving you different perspectives and opposing views to make things okay. Well, maybe I didn't really think about it that way or whatever.
Yeah, that's right. And there could be stuff that you haven't spent much time in that particular area of tax law, and you're just someone else has, and so they remind you that this change is made, or hey, have you thought about this provision or that provision? And so having a strong team around you is crucial. It's really tough to do, and I think this is with all areas of law, just to do something on your own. I would expect litigators would say the same thing, like having a good team around you is important. I know that corporate lawyers, when they're doing deals, they need a good team around them. I would guess that entrepreneurs say the same thing: is to be successful in their business, to grow their business, they have a really strong team around them.
Right. It sounds like things are going really well for you and your business. As a busy legal professional, a lot of time is spent actively working. When looking towards the future, many don't want to have to be working so hard for that income. So some look at different ways of creating income and profits through things like investing in stocks, bonds, or crypto, or even using a financial planner or something like that. What are your thoughts of creating income outside of your work and active business?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important. I try to live within my means, so I have a little bit money left over each month to save and invest for retirement. As lawyers, we don't have a pension behind us, so
Right.
it's all kind of saved up in our RSPs, our TFSAs, maybe our professional corporations to pay for our retirement years. So I actively do that. In the past, I've used a financial planner. I kind of do it now mostly on my own. I
Mm-hmm.
suspect as I get older and I get to those retirement years again, I'll go back to a financial planner to help with cash modeling and make sure that we're not going to run out in retirement.
Yep.
But I quite enjoy being on the financial side of things in my career. I quite
Mm.
enjoy the financial side of investing in stocks and ETFs and index funds and that
Right.
kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I kind of mostly do that on my own. And I have children and they're young adults. And so I enjoy working with them, talking with them about these things and see that they're learning how to do this much younger than I did, when
Right.
when amounts at risk are much less, such that when they are at my age, they'll have had 20, 30 years of experience doing this stuff. And so they'll be much better than I am. And so yeah, so actually I do find that quite I really like it. And but that's the way we have to do it as lawyers is there's no pension behind us, so we
Yeah.
better. And I think that's the same with your doctors and dentists and entrepreneurs, is there's no pension behind them, so they better save and plan for their retirement, and whether they do it on their own or they do it with financial planners or whatever.
Right, right, right. So it's important to think about it now, create a plan with someone or do something related to that, and just not just live for today, but also plan for the future as well.
Yeah, I think how I try to look at it is, if you have your uh, you know how much money you make after tax every month, and you know how much you have to pay to live, and hopefully there's money left over from that, and then if you can kind of split it between discretionary fund type spending
Hmm.
and saving, and you're doing it in such a way that it looks like when it's time to retire you'll be able to retire, then that becomes a bit easier way to manage money than sort of budgeting where you feel bad because you went out for dinner this week, and it's not quite within the budget, whereas instead it's more kind of global, I guess, categories, and it's as long as you're sort of saving a certain amount each month to save for your retirement or whatever, then maybe you don't have to stress as much about
Right.
those fun things that you do, or
Yeah.
or you save up for those fun things and then do them. Yeah, so anyway, that's how I do it, and I it's fun talking with my kids and see how they do it, and hopefully,
Right.
and I'm sure they'll do it better than I did. But yeah,
As we're wrapping up our interview, what kind of exciting plans do you have in the next 6 to 12 months?
yeah, I have one of my kids is getting married in a couple of weeks,
Oh, wow.
so that's kind of
Congratulations.
fun. And
Yeah.
yeah, and we have and he's also graduating at the end of the year, and a couple other kids that are graduating university a year from now. So very busy on the family front, and then it's been 2 very busy months starting here at LidMac, and I
Hmm.
expect that'll just keep going. And I hope at some point in the next, call it 6 months, I'll get my feet under me. And but it's been a really easy, nice, fun transition to LinMac, and yeah, and all those interesting family things that are happening this year. I look forward to as well.
Right on, right on. Brian, that wraps it up today. Thank you so much for your time and sharing your thoughts and insights with us. It was a real pleasure to have you on the show. And Brian, if people want to connect with you, what's the best way?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn. LinMac LLP has a website. My email is just bkearl@linmac.com. Always happy to chat tax if someone's interested. Yeah, I'm in Calgary, and it looks like I'll be in Calgary for, I've been here for 20 years practicing tax, probably another 20 more, I would guess.
Right on, right on.
And thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Want to share your success story? Apply to be a guest at truenorthsuccessshow.com/guest. We'd love to hear from you.